to national news coverage. This is your host, Anthony, and today we've got a great show for you. We've got some interesting stories that you won't want to miss, so don't go anywhere. Good evening. Tonight, we investigate and discuss the causes of the Bosnian War, a devastating conflict between Bosnian Serbs and Bosnian Muslims and Croats.
Yes, as you may already know, the Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina is a multi-ethnic nation with a population consisting of Bosnian Muslims, Croats, and Serbs. After the collapse of Yugoslavia in 1992, the fledgling nation declared independence and was internationally recognized as its own country.
That's right, Bill. Ethnic tensions within the country have caused dangerous conflict, causing the Serbian portion of Bosnia to attempt to annex the nation with military backing from Serbia, another country in the Balkans area, in an attempt to maintain Bosnia as part of Yugoslavia.
Exactly where has all this ethnic tension come from? Why all of a sudden do we see ruthless bloodshed all across the Balkans?
That's a question that I think is on everyone's minds as we watch the Bosnian tension escalate. During Adolf Hitler's rise to power, the Axis powers invaded the nation of Yugoslavia in 1941 and partitioned the fragile region into Croatia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Serbia, and Slovenia. Soon after the collapse of the Nazi regime, Yugoslavia was united into a socialist state under Josip Tito, who discontinued the Young Republic's alliance with Joseph Stalin. It was during this period of relative peace that ethnic tension between Serbs and Muslims likely festered. When Tito died in 1980, the ultra-nationalist Slobodan Milosevic took power in the decade to follow. Milosevic used the already present ethnic hatred in independent Kosovo to overthrow the governing body and add to his Serbian sphere of influence. Although he wasn't able to subdue the resistance in Slovenia, Milosevic invaded Croatia in 1991, claiming to be defending the Serbian minority threat that resided there.
And that's what brings us to the mass killings we see today.
That's correct, Bill. Soon after the Serbian forces successfully bombarded Croatia, they began a campaign of violence that seems to go on without end.
Fighting between the Muslims and Croats and the Serbs has escalated to a full-fledged war, with the Serbs bringing destruction and genocide among the Croats and Serbs. An ethnic purging of Muslims in the area has been orchestrated by the Serbs, who have also been destroying Croat churches and villages. This conflict has been continuing and escalating with almost no intervention.
Well, Bill, the U.S., who have taken the side of the Bosnian Muslims and Croats, has ordered an embargo upon Serbia, and President Clinton has strongly urged Western European nations to take actions against Serbia as well.
Wait a minute, Anthony. I'm getting breaking news that the U.S. and NATO have begun bombing Bosnian Serb forces.
We'll get back to you as we gain more information on the U.S.'s actions in Bosnia. In light of the recent report, we will be joined by Ajdin, a Bosnian Serbian, to hear his opinion on the U.S.'s action in Bosnia. Welcome.
Hello, sir. It's great to be here.
Great to have you. As you may already know, the U.S. and NATO have been bombing the Bosnian Serbs for a couple months, and it looks like peace talks are about to open. As a Bosnian Muslim, what do you think of the U.S. intervening in the war?
I'm very pleased to hear that your United States have intervened in this conflict. These crazy Serbians have been nothing but horrific towards us, and to see you help us Bosnian Muslims only makes us appreciate your actions more. You would not believe the atrocities they have committed.
It's obvious your people and the Croats are in direct conflict with the Serbs. What atrocities have they committed?
These monsters have no limit. They have committed actions that go beyond war crimes. This war is no longer about Bosnia's independence. It is now more about which ethnic group will be left standing.
So, is ethnic cleansing really occurring? What methods have the Serbs been using?
Yes, it has been occurring, Anthony. They have made it their goal to maintain themselves as the only remaining race in the country. My people, as well as the Croats, are forcibly being removed from our homes. The Serbs have taken every measure possible to make us feel terrible. They murder hundreds of us, rape our women, destroy our mosques and churches, confining us to ghettos, destroying our property, and even deporting us.
Well, have any of your military efforts had any avail?
Well, while we have been fighting back, the Serbs are just too strong and have too strong of a military for us to fight off, even with Serbia providing them aid.
Well, surely the Muslims and Croats have considered joining forces to fight off the Serbs?
Unfortunately, that is not the case, Anthony. The violence has gone so bad that we've begun to fight against each other. We are all desperate for survival and have no time for alliance.
The NATO bombings must be a relief for you then.
Oh yes, the West has finally answered our cries for help. It is a sign that hope is not lost and justice will be served on those despicable Serbs. Bosnia will be a unified and independent nation in time.
Well, it's been a pleasure to interview you, Yajden. Thank you for your time. Well, viewers, we've got to take a break right now, but stay tuned because after the commercial, we've got some on-site coverage of the events in Kosovo, as well as an in-studio debate about the events of Kosovo. We'll be right back. Welcome back to NNC. The Balkans still seems to be in turmoil as the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, a nation consisting of Serbia and Montenegro, has entered an armed conflict with Kosovo, a territory under control of Serbia. Albanian rebels living in Kosovo have strived for independence, and the Yugoslavian government has sent in forces, ignited yet another war in the region. We will switch to our man on the scene, Lewis Clarkson, to provide on-site coverage of the event.
I'm standing outside of this restricted military area where I've been advised not to proceed beyond these fences. If you look over these hills, you can see a bunch of bombings. All of these are orchestrated by NATO.
At the end of the Cold War, when Yugoslavia fell apart and nationalism ignited the Balkans, Kosovo seemed a calamity waiting to happen. The Kosovo question worried the Clinton administration, as it had the Bush administration before it.
It's a report here in Kosovo. Back to you, Anthony.
Thanks for the report, Lewis. It doesn't sound too pleasant over there, but now I must direct our viewers to our final piece of the night. For our final story, we will be joined by Supreme Allied Commander Wesley Clark and Secretary General of the UN, Kofi Annan. Now, the question I think everyone is wondering about is whether the NATO bombings of Yugoslavia can be justified. Mr. Secretary General, your opinion regarding the bombings remains somewhat unclear from the interviews given, so I turn to Mr. Commander Clark to ask, why should the North Atlantic Treaty Organization be using force in the Balkans?
Well, the answer is quite simple, really, and it comes down to accountability. If the United States and the rest of the Western Europe doesn't step in and hold Yugoslavia accountable for their atrocities, then no one will. We've run out of options here. There's a second Holocaust that's been happening right on our noses for quite some time. If you ask the average American whether they would support using force against the Nazis to stop the oppression of Jews, they would say, use any means necessary. There can be no hesitation in stopping the violence, and I believe we're correct in acting now.
Now, you've compared the Holocaust or the genocide to the Holocaust in Nazi Germany, but many Americans would argue that such force only killed armed belligerents in Germany. Already, hundreds of innocent civilians have been killed in Kosovo. Would you say that you're fighting fire with fire?
No, Anthony, absolutely not. Not every Nazi chose to be a Nazi, and not every Serb supports the ethnic cleansings. But the violent nationalists of Yugoslavia have left us no choice but war.
Okay, well, it seems that you made a sound case for the attacks that have been launched. As clarification, Mr. Secretary General, how has the UN responded to the NATO bombings? Our sources report that it was not approved, since the events in Kosovo have no effect on any member of NATO. Is that true?
Yes, that is correct. I will start by saying that Mr. Clark is correct. The Serbs have committed crimes against humanity that cannot go unaccounted for. However, I urge politicians and viewers alike not to give up on diplomacy. I admit that force is sometimes necessary, but I cannot advocate or even condone war where every alternative has not been exhausted.
And you don't believe that every alternative has been exhausted?
No, I do not. If the UN were able to directly negotiate with the Yugoslavian powers, we may be looking at an entirely different situation, with no civilian deaths at the hands of the Western powers.
Well, if my job is so easy, then maybe you should give it a shot next time. See how far negotiating gets you with those Serbian psychopaths.
Well, that's all the time we have for the debate. I want to thank you two for coming in and discussing this issue. Well, that's the end of the show. We've had some great interviews and debates, but it's time to draw this show to an end. Till next time, I'm Anthony, and you've been watching NNC.